In this lesson, I want to look at how to add app icons to our project. Here's our Arizona image project. And if I were to go back to the home button on the emulator and scroll over to my projects, here is our app on our device. And notice the icon is this default grid for designing app icons. That's not very descriptive. That's not what you would want somebody to see. And if you're going to put this in the App Store, you have to have icons that meet Apple's requirements. So let's look at how to do that. I'm going to first jump over to Canvas. I'm going to go into the modules area. I'm going to scroll down to the module on instructors blog post. And there are two files here I'm going to use in developing my app icon that you might want to download and use yourself. These are free to my students. There's a JavaScript script for exporting the icons in the various sizes, and then there's a template here for designing your icon in Photoshop. Both of those work in Photoshop. Now I'm going to jump over to Xcode. Here's our project. And remember, we looked at the xcassets folder or document inside the assets folder. And we had in there our various images that we use, Grand Canyon, Hoover Dam, and so forth. And by default, there's this app icon document. And this is where we add in our icons for our project. There's a bunch of different placeholders for icon sizes. And with our different devices, in terms of various models of iPhones and various models of iPads, we need icons of various resolutions. And so there's a placeholder for each of those different size icons. So it goes basically from 20 point all the way up to 1024 by 1024. And since we can always scale down much better than we can scale up without losing quality, we want to start with designing our icon at 1024 by 1024 and then resize it and save it in these other various sizes. The icons are all square. So with that in mind, I'm going to jump over to Photoshop now. In Photoshop, I've opened that template document that I had you download, and we'll take a quick look at that. So first of all, there are guidelines here. I'm just going to hide those by going to the View menu and turn off Extras. Now my first layer here gives the design rules for designing an app icon that Apple provides in their human interface guidelines. So here are the rules. They want you to keep it simple. Provide a single centered viewpoint. So the emphasis should be in the center. Make it recognizable and easy to understand. So the user shouldn't have to think about what does this icon represent. No transparency. Everything should be 100% opaque. Avoid any text, unless it's really important that text is included. So, for example, in our icon for the Arizona image viewer, I might do an AZ representing Arizona. That would be okay. But when you scale this down to 20 by 20 pixels, text is not, at that size, is not very readable, especially if there's a lot of it. So they want you to avoid text and numbers, things like that. No photos or screenshots or no interface elements. You shouldn't have an image of a button as part of your icon. And then you'll notice in the device, the icons all have rounded corners. But that takes place with the mask. They do not want you to round the corners. They want you to design this as a square icon. And then down here, I also demonstrate the different sizes that are needed for the different types of devices. So in the App Store, they want 1024 regardless of the device you're running on. But then on the various devices, we have an app size, and then a spotlight, settings, and tab bar where those icons are also used, and those are scaled down. The original iPhone at 1X is really no longer supported. You don't have to design for that, but you are designing for the iPhone 2X and 3X resolutions, and then the iPad resolutions, which really are at 1X and 2X. And there's the iPad Pro, which is a little bit higher resolution for the app icon. Now I put this all in a layer in Photoshop, and you can just hide that layer. And what I have then is a grid, kind of a standard grid for designing icons for iOS. And you'll see where the rounded corners will come into play. You don't want anything in those corners. And there's also kind of a safe area here. This square, outer square, is sort of the safe area. Your icon should have a background. And so the background would flood all that area and anything inside of that you're not using. And you can see where the center is. Now, if you're designing an icon that is blue and you want to have that grid, I also provided a red grid. And you could change the color of the grid very easily by going to the image menu, and these are locked, so I got to unlock it, select the layer, go to the image menu, and under adjustments you could choose hue and saturation and click the colorize box, and you could then make this any hue that you wanted. So if you wanted a green grid, you could do that. I'm going to click cancel. I'm going to leave it as red, and I'm going to lock that layer again so I don't accidentally move it. So when I design my icon, of course you can use the layers in Photoshop, but at the end you want to flatten it all into one layer. But icons should be saved as PNG files, and in saving as a PNG, it's going to flatten it automatically for you. So I did a little pre-work here. I added some layers. I added a map of Arizona. This is a public domain map that's available. And then I added the Arizona flag on a layer. And then some clip art that was royalty-free that I have in a collection of just a cactus. So I'm going to work with the map here first. So I'm going to make the map the active layer. I'm going to take the magic wand tool, and I'm going to select the blue area of the map. Now I could create a clipping mask between the flag and the map, but very simply I'm just going to select that area. I'm going to go to the flag layer, and you can see my marching ants representing the outline of our map. And what I'm going to do is just simply make a mask. So I'm going to click this little icon to add a layer mask, and that hides everything outside of that map outline. So there's two icons here, one for the map mask and one for the flag image. There's a little link in between these. I'm going to unlink them by clicking the link, and then I'm going to click the flag thumbnail, and with the move tool I can move the flag inside the mask. So right about there. And then I'm going to link those two back together again. So now if I move it, the mask and the flag are going to move together. I'm going to turn my map off. I no longer need that. I'm going to turn on the cactus clip art. And I don't really like the way this comes together here. I'd like the map flag to be a little behind the cactus. So again, with that layer still selected, I'm going to go to the edit menu, and I'm going to transform and scale. I'm just going to scale it down just a little bit. Maybe something about like that. Just so there's a little bit of an edge at the bottom. And press the Enter key, and then again with the Move tool, I'm going to press the letter V. I'm going to move that map over a little bit. Just about like that. So I'm still staying within the safe area of that outer square. I'm going to take my layer that's got the cactus on it. In fact, I'm going to name this cactus. I'm going to name this one flag. And then with the cactus layer selected, I'm just going to jump to the effects button here to add a layer style. And I'm going to add a inner glow, but I want my inner glow not to be white, but to be a darker green. And I'm going to change the blending mode from screen to multiply. And I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger. Just gives it a little more depth. Click OK. I don't want a white background, so I could come down and change the color of layer 0 and turn the grid off so I wouldn't see the grid. Again, you turn these on and off by clicking the little eyeball. Instead, though, I'm just going to come up to where the map was. I'm just going to add a new layer. And I want to get a copper color. Now, I Googled the copper color, and the reason I'm choosing copper is there are 5 C's to Arizona: canyon, cattle, citrus, cotton, and copper that drives the economy of Arizona. So I'm going to bring up my color picker. And the copper color I found was B87333. And I'm simply going to take the paint bucket. I do a Command D to make sure that nothing is selected, and on that layer I'm simply going to paint. There then is my icon. Go to the File menu and choose Save As. I'm going to save this to the desktop. As azimage_icon. I'm going to leave it as a PSD file. And as we did before with our images we want to put into 3 resolutions, I have a script that will create all the different size icons for us. So I'm going to go to the File menu, choose Scripts, Browse, and I want to find that iOS icon export PNG. That's the script we downloaded from Canvas. I'm going to open it. It's going to ask to give me a name of the icon. I'll leave it as azimage_icon. I'm just going to say OK. I'm going to set the compression down to about 7, maybe you can do 6. Let's do 6. I'm going to say OK. And it now is creating a folder and adding all the different size icons into that folder for me. File exports are complete. Click OK. And now I'm going to go to my desktop. And on the desktop I have a folder called Icons. And you'll see there are all my icons at the different resolutions. I'm going to leave that open. I'm going to go back into Xcode, and now I need to add those to the app icon in xcassets. And so I can see both Xcode and Finder. I'm going to stop minimizing Xcode. Go to the app icon, and now I can take these different size icons and drag them where they need to go. So you see this first one is the 40 pixel. The next one is the 60. 58. 87. 80, and these are basically the 2 and 3x versions of the originals, so in this one was 40 point originally, so we've got an 80 and 120, 120 being the 3x for the newer iPhones. 76, 152, 167, and then finally we have our 1024 for the App Store. So there then are all the icons. I'm going to relaunch my app onto the emulator. So here then is my project on the emulator, and I can go to different images. But if I go back to the Home button, there we now see our icon applied on the emulator device and would appear that way on any physical devices that we would export our app to. The alternative, of course, in Photoshop, if you didn't use that script, you'd have to simply resize it manually and save it each time into those different sizes. So that's how we create an icon and add it to our project. If you just jumped into this video, you can see all the videos from the iOS app development cohort playlist by clicking on the image in the lower right. And if you'd like to be alerted to future videos that I create, you can click my picture up in the top right and subscribe to the channel.